Hey nerds, Vino here with a very punctual servant guide for Chacha. She's a 4-star berserker with a proper buster deck, and best of all, she's free. Let's start things off with a look at her skills. First up is Golden Rule, Evil. It gives you a certain amount of meter per turn, capping at 10% for 3 turns. 30% delayed charge is a bit obnoxious for fast farming, but on the other hand there's like one berserker with both an AoE Noble Phantasm and an instant self-charge. That's Spartacus, and farming with a level 60 Zerk poses its own problems. So yeah, the primary benefit of this skill is that you reduce the odds of her reaching the boss without her NP. You can run 50% ZEs like Golden Sumo with no waiver backup, and be alright. Golden Rule Evil has a second effect that increases your NP gain from being hit, but like with the Avengers, you don't want to lean on this property. She might have a lot of health, but Chacha is still a berserker, and taking unnecessary damage is not a winning strategy with her. Skill 2 is Innocent Monster, Flame. 10 stars per turn for 3 turns, at max level. That's the big upshot. Again, the second effect isn't very practical. Gimping your ally's absorption might sound nice, but as a berserker, Chacha has awful absorb. If you're running her with anyone who isn't a Zerk or Avenger, it'll have minimal impact on star distribution. Skill 3 is Consort of the Sun. At max rank, this applies a defense debuff that ramps from 10% to 50% over 5 turns. The best part? It has a 5-turn cooldown, so as long as Chacha lives, it has perfect uptime. This is our most interesting skill, and any late game outings with Chacha will hinge on its application. Chacha's Noble Phantasm is Radiant Demon Fortress of the Sun. Bit of a mouthful in it. Its AoE reduces crit chance and burns on overcharge. The crit reduction is nice given how frequently enemies do it. Burn's not too relevant unless you run Demonic Bodhisattva. Her kit doesn't contribute all that much to a burn stacking team, so I'd avoid that route. In practice, this NP's overall damage isn't all that impressive because of Chacha's stat distribution and lack of offensive buffs. That said, it does have strategic applications, so let's talk about those. Calling Chacha this year's Caster Elizabeth might be a bit harsh, but she fills a very similar role in team building. She's an AoE stat stick. Consider this early to mid-game setup. Your starter or most leveled servant goes in slot 2, but I'm using Tamamo Cat as a sample. She's also a decent complement for messy fights, and when you don't have K-scopes or big dick self-chargers, that's every fight. Your goal would be to get Han's NP off early for durability and damage. This gives you a cushion to bust your chain through small fry and slug it out with bigger threats. If you're in a position to pop Tammycat's NP, you get one of the few situations where Chacha's star manipulation becomes relevant. Tammycat dumps out a bunch of stars and Chacha takes them. Hans might suck a lot of them up, but I think you'll have some to play around with. The big thing you need to watch out for is your total lack of NP defense. Tammycat has a drain, but it caps at an abysmal 60% chance, so yeah, have fun with that. When scaling into late game content, Chacha's weak damage becomes a bigger issue. As a stopgap, you can combo her with Elizabeth. Lizard Girl has 2 big things going for her. First, her attack buff doubles on other women. Secondly, she has an upfront defense debuff. With this combo, you can soften up targets and buff Chacha to seriously maim the final wave. I'd recommend keeping a backline threat in case you take one on the chin. They can capitalize on Chacha's defense debuff for an easy cleanup. Once you have a deep roster, Chacha becomes a way of dealing with second wave trash. You stick a K-scope on her, blow up wave 2, and then debuff the boss so your primary attacker is an easy kill. Not going to show any footage of this, it's pretty straightforward. Pre-Lost Bell, Chacha has the strongest defense debuff skill in the game, with an asterisk given that it ramps. I debated pairing it with Asterios, but we're not going to use him because Chaos Labyrinth only does massive reduction for 1 turn. So yeah, I've got 2 setups for this. The more practical one combos Chacha with Waver and either Keel Lancer or Potato Man Eric Bloodaxe. Both attackers have defense reduction on a skill. It's 30% each, which is above average, though Kiyohime's comes with a pretty hefty price tag. That said, she compensates with crit chance reduction. Between her and Chacha's NP, you should have a fair amount of uptime. Waver has defense reduction on unreturning formation. At NP 5, that's 50%. I dare say it's practical. Version 2, maybe not so much. Osakabe Hime's debuff only lasts for a single turn, but it's an on-demand skill that also purges buffs. Her NP gives quick and buster amps that work for both Chacha and Matahari. Speaking of which, Matahari is a defense debuff vending machine. 40% between Pheromone and Double Cross, and her NP gives 20% at Overcharge 1. That's a lot of defense debuffs. With that kind of reduction, even lightweights like Matahari can really fuck someone up. But as amazing as this team is, it's got a few weaknesses. Really the big problem is getting to the boss wave in the first place. Brawling with Matahari and Oki is all kinds of yikes. For craft essences, I'll stick to stuff you're likely to have. Fortress of the Sun is a no-brainer with starting charge, crit damage, and star gen, though it's got a suboptimal stat distribution. Holy Knight Supper is probably the better choice with NP damage instead of star gen. 2k attack? Good shit. Golden Sumo is coming up again this year. Never hurts. For the most basic of options, let's end on Dragon's Meridian. It's a 50% charge CE and it used to be an epidemic in the gacha. It got relegated to friend point summons, so headhunting it's become a weirdly difficult process. If you happen to pull copies while burning friend points, I'd hold on to them. It's good filler for party deployment anyway. So taken as a whole, Chacha is a character very heavily geared towards new players. She's a lot less useful for established accounts because of her poor attack, lowest of all 4-star berserkers, and lack of damage buffs. But you shouldn't write her off because of that. I've been playing a lot on my Mistake account, and having a gold AoE berserker is one of those things you take for granted until you don't have one. Everything is so damn slow. Better yet, her welfare status means you don't need any standard ascension items. Even for skills, her early to mid levels are quite doable for fresh accounts. In a situation where you're short on every resource, Chacha is one of the better options along with Paul Bunyan, though PB requires grails to do anything. Think about this. Even the event made farming for her relatively painless. You can just limit break Fortress of the Sun, stack Wolves of Mibu, and grind your way to victory. Given these qualities, I'd say she's a tactically weak servant as time goes on, but strategically great for account building. Hopefully you got her in time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, by all means like, subscribe, and come watch me on Twitch. I stream FGO, so if you want to come and chill, that's the place. See you next time.